I'd like to go over the history of Belden, then the restoration, and then go kind of around the room and talk about, as we're sitting here, we can go around the room and find out more about the things that are in the building, the artifacts, and how they came to be here. So that'll be a good thing to do, I think. And we'll talk a little bit about outside. Well, in 1858 is when it all started. 1 acre of land was, which was in the center of Guilford Township, was purchased by the school officials for $30. Wouldn't that be nice? Mm-hmm. Previously, the children in the area went to school at the old Avery House, which was on the corner. It's now a brick residence. It was a great big white mansion. And the children would go to school there, and they would pay, I think it was 2 cents a day to go to school there. And then eventually a small log school was built on the property, and then they would move from the mansion over to the log schoolhouse. The schoolhouse eventually burned down, and that was the motivation to get a building more permanent. And that's how Belden School came to be built. And it was named after Thomas S. Belden, who was a local resident. And his farm was up where Janet Carlson's house now is. That was his farm, and you can see the remnants of the old driveway that would go in there. So the school was built, a teacher was hired, and the school was in business. And people often ask, this is something you might want to remember. People often ask, well, how was it decided what students would come to the school? The school was placed in a central location, not just Belden, but all of the 101 schoolhouses in Joe Daviess County. The schoolhouses would be placed in the center of where all the farms were. So everybody would have to journey through the woods all over the county. And it needed to be, have water accessibility. It had to have a well or a water supply, which Belden did not have. But Belden did have a spring with a pipe running into it, and it's down there by the parking area. Well, the school was built in 1859. It had no electricity, no restrooms, and no running water. And it talks about the pipe in the creek in the 1859 spot. Now remember I mentioned that big white mansion? For the time it was a mansion. Ulysses S. Grant and L.F.U. Washburn were citizens of Galena, and Ulysses Grant would come up and chop wood. That was in his rather poor and desperate days, and he would come up and chop wood for the people that owned the house. So he was inside of Belden School. The teacher's salary was $6 per month. Okay, you know what to say about that. In 1880, a law was passed requiring that a schoolhouse must have outhouses, so 2 were built, and it cost $17 each. The boys' outhouse was in front of the building. We're not sure if it was over on the left, you know, that side, or this side. We have found evidence that it probably was over here on this side of the building way back, because Sandy went exploring once, and bare feet and all, and she did find some things that possibly could have been from the outhouse. And then where the shed is now, that was the site of the girls' outhouse. And there are some interesting stories about the outhouse, and people always like to hear about. One teacher who went out there to smoke, and another teacher at another time went out there to have some private time with her boyfriend. And people like to hear those kinds of interesting things when they come to visit the school. Right. Now, originally, Belden only had one door, and that was the door through the cloakroom. But then it became a law that there needed to be another exit in the school. So that's when this window was turned into a door. And it became a bit of a problem during the restoration because the door was much heavier than the window was. So we had to do some extra reinforcing of that door area because the glass was much lighter and the door just was way off kilter. And that was a little bit of a mistake on our part because we did have a picture of it when it was just a window. It was a door with a glass. Originally they put a door with glass in it. But when we were restoring it, that was gone and this was all boarded up. So we didn't know that it should be a door with glass on the top. But it got all fixed. So that was really the original way it looked. And the classroom is a replica of what the school was like in 1936. We only had one picture of the school to decide what it looked like. We went through, well, do we make it look like it looked in the 1800s? Do we go, how far can we go and still have it look like it looked at some time later? And so it was consensus that we should go with 1936 because we had the picture and we could use everything that was in the picture to restore it. But if we limited it to the 1800s, we couldn't include a lot of things. We probably, well, the maps maybe, but the school, we didn't know what it really looked like. So that's why we went with 1936. The last classes were held in 1943 because of consolidation of the small districts. And when Belden closed, there were only 4 students here. The most students they ever had here, we think, were 26.